to another episode of What You Didn't Know. I'm your host, Marcus Pathay, owner of C3 Wellness, here with our lead acupuncturist, Dr. Orman.
We had a lot of fun in the beginning.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Today, we're going to talk about how April showers bring joint pain, a topic that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. So I'm going to let Dr. Orman jump into it and kind of give his little spill.
There are a number of weather patterns that definitely affect the body. Some of them are kind of obvious and some of them may be unique. Obvious ones, Florida, heat. There is a diagnostic impression in Chinese medicine called summer heat, where when it would essentially be heat, not stroke, but pointing in that direction. And it's basically the heat being trapped in the body and the body having a difficult time getting rid of it. That's where all of your
Inflammation.
Yeah, your inflammation, all your islandy kind of fruits, the ones that are very cooling in nature and moist, help to flush out that toxic heat. And you could also get the seeds, from for example, from a watermelon, and boil the seeds, strain it, let the water cool, and sip on that, and that will also help to flush out that excess heat from the system.
Oh, wow.
In damp weather, you have the joint issues, and you think, oh, that's just, but there's actually a lot of truth to it. And so if you take this room, yin and yang, if you take this room, the structure itself, the walls, the ceiling, the floor would be considered yin, and the energy in here, so the electricity, us, would be considered yang. With the dampness has a tendency to flush out the yang and makes the yin stale. The joints are considered, I would say, doorways or gateways to dampness. So the dampness has a tendency to get trapped in the joints itself. So there are particular herbs, there are particular points and hands-on anything to help move that dampness, to help clear that dampness is very, very beneficial. And we find it, of course, here in Florida because not so much that it's usually damp, but we get a lot of rain, and especially Central Florida is very swampy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of water, but the water's not moving.
Correct.
And so that's why it's the allergy capital of Florida, which is the allergy capital of the world unofficially. What else do we have? We don't have to deal with this, fortunately, too much, but you had fairly cold weather in North Carolina.
Yeah, all
snow
4 seasons, yeah.
Okay.
Mainly black ice and sleet.
So that cold also has a tendency to get trapped, and what happens is, so there's fascia. Think of fascia as when you go to Publix, you have ground beef and that plastic that wraps around it. Think of that around the organs and tissues. So the cold has a tendency to stiffen the fascia, which then has an effect on the muscle itself. And that's where it leads to pulled muscles and strains and stresses and all that stuff. Those are the major ones. There's some peculiar ones. People who are really sensitive, and we have a number of people who work here who are really just energetically sensitive. So things like solar flares. You think, wow, how would that affect? But it does actually have an effect on the body.
Really?
When the barometric pressure is altered, that's when you have a lot of headaches. I feel a migraine coming on.
Correct.
There are other possibilities, of course, but that is actually a peculiar one. And maybe the most peculiar, this is sort of slightly outside the weather, but full moons. I used to, way back.
Well, last night too, matter of fact.
My very first, what I consider my real job, was in mental health. And I used to think, oh, full moons, this is just ridiculous, some myth. And patients would have a much more difficult time. I remember reading an article, a study on rats, where they were given an injection during the day, and I don't know how many rats there were, but they would always die. But they were given the same injection on a full moon, and nothing would happen.
Oh, wow.
And the scientists could not explain that other than timing. And they would do it at different times at night. Nothing. It was only when there was a full moon.
That's very interesting.
And so there may be energetic patterns or something like that that affect certain people, and people who have a tendency to be more sensitive. So we have wonderful therapists who are just, you know what, they're just good people. They're kind, they're loving people. They want to see others. They give of themselves to patients to make sure that they're getting better, and they do their very best. that is a heart-driven thing. And so they would have a tendency, people like that would have a tendency to be, so nurses and caregivers in general would have a tendency to be more sensitive to this. And there are some things that can be done to help protect it. Tai Chi, Qigong, all of the energy-based exercises are fantastic. There is a meditation, visualization, I don't even know what you call it, it's kind of in between world, where there are particular meridians that have an effect on protecting the body that aren't associated with the organs. This goes back thousands of years. It's rarely taught because most people don't know it. It's not translated very well. There are certain foods, I know when I eat this, I know when I take this, I feel better, and perhaps the most famous of all of them is ginseng, Chinese ginseng, which is also called ren shen. And that is particularly good for people over 40, so not us, but
the other people.
Others. And it really strengthens the energetic system. But really, Tai Chi, Qigong, there's one called Bagua, which is, in my opinion, more powerful than Tai Chi, but they're cousins to it. And you briefly did a little round of it once.
I remember.
And there's an institute in California called Heart Math, heart as in heart, math, M-A-T-H. And they noted that the body's energetic field extends 12 feet. So 12 feet in circle. So when you come into contact with people who they're happy, they're joyous, and maybe you're not, all of a sudden you feel better. Conversely, you're walking in a room, April 15th. A lot of people aren't really happy today.
That is true.
And so you'll find that kind of energy dropping a little bit. So that can affect things as well.
All right. And trust me, I know this. Definitely walking through a crowd, that energy rubs off, and all of a sudden you just instantly start feeling whatever. So yeah, you have a point there. It makes sense.
Yeah, so if people can do it, and because we're energetically based, certainly other things, including the weather, which has a huge impact on us, and of course, the major traumas, not so much here earthquakes, but we have to deal with hurricanes. I mean, they could be terrifying. Hurricanes, they're coming. The worst, in my opinion, of the worst are the tornadoes. They're just, wait, what is that out there?
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. You can at least prepare that a hurricane is coming. With a tornado, it's just, you just hope it don't hit you.
Yeah, and Monday you're hanging out in your beautiful house, and Wednesday everything's gone. So it could be quite humbling also. So it's not easy being human sometimes.
I agree with you on that one. But okay, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you for attending another episode of What You Didn't Know. Again, I'm your host, Marcus Bethay, here with our lead acupuncturist, Dr. Orman. Make sure you guys follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time.